another episode of Ball Over Passion. It is transfer deadline day, and I am your host at George V_AFC, and we are here. We're a little bit disappointed. We're a little bit deflated. We don't understand where it all went wrong. But it's not an Edu Winter Wonderland. It's kind of a nightmare at this point. But guys, how you doing? Chris, Curran, how you guys doing? Good?
I'm good, man. I'm good. Considering everything that's happened today,
Yeah.
it's not been as big as other deadline days. Mostly because we usually are the ones that come in big on deadline day, but we did everything early. And then United did stuff earlier in the week, so they already got like Anthony yesterday, Casemiro last week. So everyone's built up to it. So yeah, I'm feeling good. Like I'm not as annoyed as a lot of our fans are.
Yeah, I mean, there's a little bit of like some emotional takes, let's say, about what's been happening, and I'll go to Curran. Like, what are your thoughts? Because we were just saying like you're definitely somebody that likes to kind of partake in the deadline day antics. What did you make of kind of the rumors, the ups and downs? I think Chelsea have lost more players than they've gained in the last day and a half. They've lost almost 3 or 4 players, and then they managed to get one in. What did you make kind of just of the transfer deadline day in general, and the kind of the whole circus about how we're now struggled for top 4 after going 5 for 5?
First of all, deadline day antics. What does that even mean? What does what?
You love
Anyway,
it. You love it.
talking about transfer.
We've got a video with you mistakenly with Louise leaving in the middle of the vid. You loved links. You loved them.
look, no, but I've gotten a lot better over the past year. I'm not as bad as I used to be. I used to be awful. I'm not gonna lie to you. Because I don't really have the literacy when it came to it. So but
you're asking. That's
we're
why.
a year out from the Louise thing. Okay, we
You're
are
the
a
same.
year out from that.
Guys,
I'm
if you're
not
in the
the
group,
same.
if you're in a group chat with him, this guy will give you every single link that comes about.
What do you
and
mean?
He just can't resist it. He
This
can't
is not
resist
true. This slander. This slander is ridiculous.
Zero slander.
Ridiculous. Anyway, but in terms, I think everyone needs to take a calm look at themselves in the mirror and understand that we're not as bad as everyone thinks. We've won 5 games, guys. Like, we're not bad. We're not a bad team. And yes, we've got issues that we need to sort out. But I think this Douglas Luiz is I think a madness. I don't know what's happening. I don't expect there to be it is to be over. I think that there's definitely something happening. If there isn't, we'll report. No, the window is not over. I do not think the window is over. I know other people might. I don't think it's over. I think there's definitely something happening. Ainsley's left as well. Yeah, I'm pissed about the winger. I'm not gonna lie. We're leaving goals on the pitch. We're leaving goals on the pitch. How many have we performed on par with XG this whole season so far? We've underperformed quite significantly.
We've underperformed, but it's not by a huge margin.
We overperformed versus Leicester.
Yeah, like it's on average we haven't underperformed.
Did we?
I think.
Yeah, we created 2 XG and scored 4 goals.
Yeah. So in total, the average is not too bad. One thing that I will say, and I want to get everybody's thoughts, and then we'll get into like specifics. So don't worry, like we'll talk Rafinha, we'll talk everything. But really, really quick, I want to just address this for everybody. The window closes at 11 p.m. And then you've got 2 to 3 hours of deal sheets
2 hours
that
from
could
now.
potentially go. Right now we've got 2 hours from now the window will close officially, and then you've got another 2-3 hours if you submit a deal sheet that could be done. So look, you never know, but I'm not very confident. We could kind of go around in a circle about who is confident about signings and what signings we do. Where do you want to go from there? But one thing I will say is I've always felt that there was a deal to make in the winger department, though I maintain that we're not short number wise. I felt that for me, I wanted an additional 15 goals or an assist in the league. I kept saying this here on BoP, and I think that despite not getting it, I don't think it derails the potential of the season. I think ultimately when we look at it, there's a lot to discuss about this window, because I think it's kind of like that Gattuso gift. Sometimes maybe good, sometimes maybe shit. There's like parts of this window where I'm very happy with, and then there's other parts of the window where I'm not happy with. So firstly, Chris, give me an overview of what you felt like the window kind of has been in the end. I feel like what's happened is that we started so promising with a great authority in the market. Like, people forget, just because you've ended the window, that, our intent in this window was excellent to start with. When you start looking at it, we've removed 1,010 K per week in weekly wages. That's completely gone. You're looking at youngster loans have been phenomenal in terms of Flarian Balogun, in terms of Nuno Tavares, in terms of our actual business. We did a majority of our business early. We did it with a preseason, and we did get good value. We didn't make sure that we were extortioned by clubs. And then at the same token, I feel as though maybe we didn't get all of the positions. I mean, I know personally I wanted 2 forwards. We didn't quite get 2 forwards at the end of the window. When I start looking overall at the window, we basically addressed, again, different level raisers in the squad, but I don't think we addressed the starting 11. And that's not necessarily something I wanted going into the window. What did you make overall of this window from an Arsenal perspective, before we get into kind of other teams?
I think it's overblown how bad we did in the window, simply because I think people have already got used to the players we bought, just because we've seen some of them play already like 8, 9 games. Like, Jesus has played 5 league games, but he played 3 or 4 preseason games. So you've seen him start like 9 games for Arsenal. So like, I saw someone say we haven't added goals or an attacker. But we added Jesus, we added Marquinhos, who guys like Xhaka said he's more surprised at him than he was than Martinelli. I think people like are overblowing what has happened. I think the window was good. I think obviously we didn't get another attacker, but I think the only reason why we really, really want an attacker is more because of Arteta, because he's not willing to use anyone else instead of Saka. Like, he's not willing, or he hasn't shown he's willing to use Jesus there, Martinelli there when Saka gets tired. Like, he could use Martinelli there and put Nketiah left wing, who can match the level that either Jesus or Martinelli inputs at left wing and striker, and he's done that off the bench. So I think it's the Saka thing, which is the main reason why people are angry. Saka's gonna die. Like, Saka's gonna die this season. See, look, already there. We need another right wing to help Saka. Like, people think he's gonna die this season, but like, Jesus can play right wing. He scored 4 goals from right wing for Man City, like, in one game. So he can play right wing. He can do it very well. Martinelli has done it for us. Even Nketiah's spent some time there. So I think the Saka thing is overblown. And the 6th thing is that Elneny looks to be injured for a couple months. I don't know what his injury is. Certain people are saying he's out for a long time, and then Partey always comes and goes. So is Arteta willing to consistently use Sambi is the question. And last season he wasn't. After Partey came back, he didn't give Sambi a taste. So when he came back in, he was not on form. He hasn't touched the pitch for 7 games. So he was poor. I think we saw Sambi yesterday. We're going to talk more about Villa tomorrow, but we saw Sambi yesterday and he was very good.
He was excellent yesterday
with Xhaka. So I think he's a very good option who can play there. Would I have liked another signing? I've been vocal about yes. Would I have liked any signing? No. Like, would I have said just get anybody there? Which is, I think, the stage people have got to. No, because we have options who can do it. Like, Marquinhos can play there. We don't know his exact level, but he's done well in U21, and physically
Vieira can play there.
He's done very well in training. Jesus can obviously play there. Martinelli can play there. A lot of people are saying Nketiah deserves a start, and Saka's tired, so we can bench Saka. Not even bench him. Give Saka a rest and put Nketiah in the team. So there's options there. And I think we're just going to see.
Sorry, Chris, just before you go on into your thing, I think it's worth having a Saka debate. It seems like everybody in the chat wants to have it. So, like, let's have the proper Saka debate in terms of what our options are, what now without having a winger come in, because Reece Nelson's back in training. He's a factor. And let's kind of do a tiered approach about what you would like to see, because I've said countless times that Marquinhos for me is ready. I've looked at a scout. If you've been a fan of BoP, I've been on here saying, even before Xhaka said that he was somebody that he felt that was physically ready, like Martinelli, I said, watch out for Marquinhos. I think that this boy is not only physically ready, but he's going to surprise a lot of people. But even if you don't factor in Marquinhos, which is totally fine, because not a lot of people maybe have watched him and really scouted his level. That's no problem. If you start looking at it factually, Chris, you mentioned Jesus. Eddie Nketiah has been a new factor this season. Like, it's not even a case of him just improving. He's fully a new player. And so when you look at it and you kind of can see, okay, what are our options? You can have Jesus at right wing. You can have Eddie Nketiah up top. In terms of In terms of other options, you can have Vieira kind of at right wing, which I've said is an option for him. I don't like Vieira right wing. I think that if you're going to do that, you have to have an Emile Smith-Rowe at right center midfield. That's the only way that it can work with Vieira. I think he needs a little bit more of a burst. And then after that, you've basically got Nelson that are options down there. And then I think beyond that, you're kind of skint in terms of what you would
Martinelli
like.
could play there.
Martinelli could play there. I don't personally like him. He's played it for Brazil. He's played it with the national team quite a bit. But he does it kind of in the same mold that a Jesus would, very much a touchline winger going out to in. So those are your options in terms of a right wing. And no, mate, I've never said that he's not playing. I've been probably the only one on Twitter that has kept saying that he is somebody that could feature this season. But in terms of readiness, okay, I think that Marquinhos, it's fair to assume because people haven't seen him, you don't want to include him as an option, but he fundamentally is one. You've seen Gabriel Jesus as a right wing option. And we've had these debates, Chris, in terms of other group chats. And I kind of wanted to go to Curran, mate. What is your solution if Saka is tired? First off, I think it's a little bit overblown, but fair enough. You want to assume that Saka is going to need tired. He's going to need resting. What do you think is the best solution within the squad to now approach it? Because you're not getting another winger at this point. So what is your emergency Saka rotation, let's say?
So there's multiple options. So first of all, you have we no one's talking about Eddie. I think this, and not at right wing. Play Eddie at striker. We have options that you can move. For example, a Jesus to right wing. You can move a Martinelli to right wing. You can move a Fabio Vieira to right wing. You can have, because I think people are really underestimating what Fabio brings. He's not just some sort of, okay, he's an 8. He can also play as a winger. You can play ESR on that side. You can play Vieira and ESR together like they did in the other 23s. There's plenty of solutions. Are they optimal? No, I would have liked a Wilfred Zaha or a Pedro Neto or a Rafinha or which insert winger here. But we don't have that, which is not great, but it is what it is. We have to accept that. So can you just think that if we're just going to have Bukayo there, we actually have more right wingers at the squad than nearly any position. You have Saka, Nelson, Vieira, Jesus, Marquinhos, Martinelli, ESR can even play right wing. That's 7. If 7 options is not enough depth, then and what we're doing here, all the winger links were left-sided winger links. Mudryk, Neto, these were left-sided players. The only right winger we had was Rafinha. And Rafinha, as Edu said, was a market opportunity. So I don't understand what the issue is with people going on about we don't have enough depth at right wing. We have plenty of depth at right wing. The issue is we need to rotate that position. And if Bukayo touches the Europa League, then we're in trouble because that means that Mikel's being too stubborn. He's not letting people tell him that he needs to rotate. We need to be seeing Reece Nelson in the Europa League. We need to be seeing Marquinhos in the Europa League. It's very simple. So, yeah, that's my take on it.
Well, okay, here, I'll fire this off to Chris because, look, again, on BoP, when Fabio Vieira got signed, I said to everybody, Yuri Tielemans doesn't make sense. I got pelters for it in both group chats. I got pelters for it online. We've had a big debate where I think on here, Chris, like we're pretty much in unison about whether or not Yuri Tielemans was needed or not. But I think ultimately when you look at it, people kept telling me we're going to wait till the end of the window to get him on a cut price deal. I've said I don't think that profile-wise he's somebody that we necessarily need in the squad. For you, when you look at our central midfield, were you more worried at the start of the window recruiting a backup to Thomas Partey, let's say? Or were you more concerned about getting an option as a traditional 8 in quotation marks, somebody that could affect the pitch in between the lines? Because I think that's a very important debate that you need to have. I know that's somebody me and you kind of thought Yves Bissouma would have been excellent for, but that's not Yuri Tielemans. That's not the type of profile he is. So I think the debate really comes down to in this midfield, when you entered the summer, did you feel we were light higher up the pitch or behind?
Well, I knew we needed another option that could play as an advanced 8 right in the mid instead of Erdegaard, simply because he wasn't really willing to use a meal there. So you needed someone he trusted there to play when Ødegaard isn't either on form or not fit. Because last season, when he wasn't on form, he still didn't play a Milner. He kept playing Ødegaard, which hurt us. And then I didn't think Tielemans was ever going to fit. Like, he's not the perfect profile for what we need. I think he's a good player, but he wasn't what people wanted him to be, especially on the left. Like, he's much more suited to that on the right. But our captain's there on the right. So he wasn't going to play on the right. And then, did I think we needed a backup to Partey? Kind of, yeah. But it just depended on if he was willing to be flexible and switch to a pivot. If Partey was out, then we'll be fine anyways. Because Xhaka Lokonga as a pivot is a top 6 caliber midfield.
But part of the problem, you know what, Chris, is like people were telling me that Tielemans would replace Granit Xhaka in the team, which I think, again, people keep doubting this guy when he's shown and he's proven it to you. You know, he's had, even in this position, by the way, his most goals and assists that he's ever had in his career. He's topped it already at the beginning of the season. He's been playing immensely. Like, I think this debate between whether or not is more people's wants about trying to get people in as opposed to maybe what the squad really needed. You know, I kind of want to go to you, Curran, in terms of what you felt, what was needed in the squad. You know, I think for me, I've been very clear. The most thing that I'm really disappointed in is that despite going for Douglas Luiz, I never felt that relying on Mohamed Elneny through a contract extension was something I was comfortable with. My beginning window always had Yves Bissouma in terms of prioritizing a backup for Thomas Partey. Is that something that you're more of a fan of, or were you a fan of the pursuit of a left 8, or not even just a left 8, but a profile 8? It could be somebody between the lines. Like, where did you feel the biggest hole was, the most urgent hole in the team?
Well, the last 2 seasons, our seasons have crumbled once we've lost 2 positions, left back and DM. It's happened twice, 2 seasons in a row. And those are the 2 positions I felt we needed to address the most. And look, I think that we've looked at this and I think we've addressed one. Could Zinchenko play as a DM? I don't know. I think he's done it in the past. I wouldn't want him to do that role. But he has done it. The issue I have is I feel like in terms of pursuit of a profile, I think Bissouma would have been perfect. He's playing off the bench for Spurs. I don't really see the narrative that he'd want to start for us. He's playing off the bench for them. Doesn't really make any sense. So I think that is the main thing. I don't really get the Xhaka replacement stuff. I don't really understand that whole narrative. Xhaka has improved season on season under Mikel Arteta.
But not only that, Curran, sorry, just really quickly, it's not only his individual improvement, but also his fitness. Like, if you're going to be debating between assuming that, you know, you're not getting a starting 11 edition, I think we need to remove that from the discussion, right? Whether you were a fan of getting an Yves Bissouma or whether you were a fan of getting a Yuri Tielemans, both don't start over the current starters of Xhaka and Partey. And you know, when you're really debating it, for me, even if you wanted a midfield edition, you had to have the fitness debate about whether or not which one of those two are more likely not to be available in the middle of the season and for how many stretches of games. And I think we've seen Thomas Partey isn't reliable in that aspect, at least far more than Granit Xhaka. And so for me, it never made sense why we would choose to gamble on a position if we are choosing to gamble. And if the idea is to get a depth position, which kind of leads us into the Douglas Luiz debate, because this is the big thing for me. If you're going for Douglas Luiz, who has his benefits, but again, people keep asking me on Twitter, what do you think of the player? What do you think? Well, for me, he's a better Arthur Melo. He's somebody that has a lot of benefits in possession over Mohamed Elneny, but a lot more faults out of possession than Mohamed Elneny. He's somebody that can engage in duels well, but he's so bad when left in isolation. He is very, very poor in transition. The guy can't stop people when he's put 1v1. It's very, very poor. But what can he do in possession? He's somebody that has excellent tempo control. He is somebody that can burst out of tight spaces with a really good 5-yard burst. There's your bingo for everybody that follows here on the channel. But he is somebody that in possession would have given us a finisher sub in midfield like we do with Holding, but that could probably control the game. Now, what's his level? What's his overall level? Well, for me, he's kind of a net zero on Mohamed Elneny, because while you get benefits in possession, you actually lose things out of possession compared to him. So I don't think that you move the needle above or below with a Douglas Luiz. Is he worth £25 million? No. The thing is, when you start to identify that that's a player that you need as a result of injuries, I think everybody at the start of the season kind of felt, or at the window rather, felt that a backup Thomas Partey was more important than getting somebody else between the lines. And I think that shifted because links kept popping up on Yuri Tielemans, and then the debate on the timeline was, we're not after that profile player. I think if you're willing to spend 25 million on Douglas Luiz, it's pretty shambolic, and I'm going to criticize the recruitment team right now for not recruiting Yves Bissouma at the exact same price. That you could have done a lot earlier in the window, and that for me gave you a little bit more flexibility and quality as an upgrade down the line. If you were assuming that Douglas Luiz and even Mohamed El Neni was a very short-term solution for a year, it made no sense to me why we didn't do that. So for me, I'm upset in that aspect. But I wanted to ask both, Curran, you now first, and then we'll go to Chris. In terms of this debate on Douglas Luiz, what do you make of the player himself? Is he as bad as what Twitter makes out? But more so, are you more upset with available deals that we could have done that you felt were better value? Or do you feel as though we just left it too late and it was kind of a response to injury that we weren't expecting? I'll go to Curran first.
Well, this is a player that we've wanted for a while now. So I don't think it's a case where we're just buying anyone just for buying sake. We wanted him in January. There's been issues links to him for ages. And in terms of who he is as a player, look, he is someone. He commits a lot. I don't know. We don't have a midfielder that commits a lot of what do you call it? These transition fouls. He's someone that does that a lot. He is someone that he struggles in transition.
He does it because he can't move.
Exactly. That's why that literally literally might took the words out of my mouth. He's someone that if he's pretty decent in possession, as you mentioned, decent tempo control, will be able to help us finish games. I feel like as an 8, he'd help us in the big games. If there's someone you want as an 8, like to finish a game in like an Anfield or something, when someone's struggling, we're protecting a lead, I wouldn't mind him a bit higher up as an 8. I wouldn't like him as a 6. I would prefer him as an 8. But what Douglas Luiz does is it gives you a floor raiser. And what it also does is, I've prepared something here, but I didn't, Scott Willis did, is this. And if you look at the ages of our squad, you look at midfield, you see these little dots in the middle here, you can see the ages of our midfield. And they're all up there. They're all past their prime. So we need to reduce the age of this midfield. And bringing in a Douglas Luiz is someone that will actually be able to just factually bring the age down.
Hold on one, Curran. I'm just going to push back really slightly on that. And if you can put that back up, and I'll let you respond to the question, because we have yet to see, by the way, our leading goal scorer for 8 months of the last campaign in Emile Smith-Rowe, who's very clearly an interior option. We've yet to see Fabio Vieira, who we recruited for £30 million, absolutely in that midfield role. And that's not in here, with Scott. And this is why I kind of struggle on stats personally. But when you look at that and you factor in, because for me, you've got to add Martin Odegaard is a midfield option, Emile Smith-Rowe is a midfield option, Fabio Vieira is a midfield option, in addition to Sambi Lakanga. It's really only Mohamed El Neni, Thomas Partey, and Granit Xhaka that are our elder statesmen in the squad. In fact, I'd argue it's probably the most oldest part of our squad. But
it is.
I don't know.
It is. You can see the dots.
Yeah, but I don't know if it's necessarily old. I don't know if I would classify it as old and needing a rejuvenation. Are you more of a fan of what addition did you feel that you needed to supplement this? Because if you've got super young and then you've got super old by the logic, and you're going to recruit a prime age player, where did you want to recruit that prime age player? Because in theory, you've got. Okay, so if you've had a Bissouma, so you're more of a fan of a 6 alone.
Yes.
Like that's what you wanted to recruit over a between the line kind of player.
As I said to you, the main 2 positions I feel like we've struggled in the past 2 seasons are defensive midfielder and left back. And I feel like we've left ourselves light because of being able to group. I mean, Zinchenko can cover both positions, and Sambi has aged a year. I don't like this theory that you can't allow young players to sit in the and bed into the team. But the issue is the past 2 seasons we've struggled in those areas, and we've addressed one of them, and we've left one up for interpretation. I don't know if Douglas Luiz gets done. If it does, then we're a top 3 team in this league. I think we're a top 3 team in this league already, personally. And I think the overreaction in terms of, oh, we're going to finish outside the top 4 is ridiculous, because there's not been a situation this season that we've been in that we haven't been able to get out of.
Yeah, and we'll get back to the end, mate, because that'll come down to like essentially what you feel the window has been in total, and I'll get to that. So one thing I wanted to give Chris, look, I saw this opinion, and like I don't mean to like call people out, but that David Luiz would kill the potential of
Douglas
all of our
Luiz.
young. Yeah, sorry, Douglas Luiz, not David. Douglas Luiz would kill the potential of all of our youngsters, especially in the midfield department. What is your opinion on recruiting somebody that is pre-prime, by the way? Because I don't know if people know, like Doug is quite young. He's 24 years old. So regardless of the quality player at one point, you know, you're recruiting pre-prime. How does recruiting somebody even in the prime age kind of inhibit people higher up the pitch? Like, do you understand that point of view where recruiting a 6 would inhibit the 8 options that we have, and then vice versa? If you had recruited a Yuri Tielemans, you recruit somebody behind that gets impeded. Like, where do you stand on recruitment blocking youngster pathways?
Well, we are a very young team, so you have to be like careful. If you really trust someone and really think they're going to thrive in the future, you can't really block the pathway. But with Louise, is like, yeah, you said 24. He'll play 6 sometimes, he'll play 8 sometimes. I don't think his value will rise enough in the next 2 to 3 years to allow Patino is the main guy people were talking about. I don't think his value will rise enough in the next 2 to 3 years for us to make the money back. If we only say we give him a 5-year and he'll have 2 years left in his contract, will we get the £30 million back? I'm not sure. I don't think we will. So would the investment have been worth it to then raise or let a Patino grow into the team or let Sambi grow into the team? I'm not sure, but Arteta did say in his last press conference after Villa that he really wanted a midfielder simply because Partey's injured and Oneni's out for months. But I'm not sure on Douglas Luiz anyways. I think he has some good aspects to him. I don't think he's positionally aware enough to be a 6, and I just don't think he's better than Sambi or Xhaka at 8. So I don't see the value in signing Douglas Luiz unless he's exclusively a 6 backup. But then he's not better than Oneni.
Yeah,
So,
no, the debate is kind of strange. I think it's a short-term debate. If anything, if we were going to look at the end of the window, I always maintain we needed another 15 goals or assists in the league. That's where I'm more upset. Whether that comes from a creative solution at midfield, whether that comes from a creative winger solution, there was many ways that we could skin a cat. I still don't feel that we ended up doing exactly what I wanted to do. But look, I'm going to take this point to kind of review the window in general, and then we're going to talk some other teams in terms of specific transfers, whether you believe in them or not. Oba, Bellerin, Zakaria. Those are some things that have happened. Ainsley going to Southampton that got confirmed. But first, I want to ask you guys your general opinion of the window. I'll give you mine really quickly. I feel as though it's a 6.5 out of 10. And so the reason I've kind of given that is because I've kind of maintained that from earlier in the window. I said it earlier, like even in group chats, I've always felt like it's been lower.
That's my score. I've been saying that for like weeks now.
No, I felt that it's a 6.5 out of 10. And the reason I'll say that is because there's been really good aspects at the start of the window, but we've left ourselves quite disappointed at the end. And then there's aspects in terms of incomings where I felt that we did really, really well, but then we didn't really address the starting 11, which is something that I definitely wanted to do a lot more of. So primarily, I was a big fan of recruiting 2 versatile attackers this window. We did recruit 1. So we did half the job, but for me, we then focused on depth in terms of the total amount in the squad. So just to review in terms of who we actually got, by the way, before I do that, is we got Mac Turner, Fabio Vieira, Gabriel Jesus, Zinchenko, Marquinhos, and Austin Trusty, who is actually trusting the processes, so to speak. But, I think for me, we recruited depth mainly in terms of the incomings. And so I felt as though that we needed a little bit more in terms of the starting 11. So already that incoming for me isn't great, but it's serviceable. And I think one thing that I really enjoyed was our authoritative approach in the market. I think that we were far more authoritative in general. We were very good in terms of completing multiple deals, and we were very good at recruiting alternatives when our primary targets weren't available or we weren't willing to go higher than we were. I was a big fan of not overvaluing our assets. So there's aspects of our incomings that I felt was pretty good. But in general, if I was just rating on incomings, probably a 7 out of 10. Even approaching potentially an 8. I felt as though that we got the positions. I just didn't feel we got the quality that I wanted. Now, then moving on to departures, I think the one good thing is we actually got rid of quite a bit of players. When you start looking at the total number of transactions that we did, it was a lot. It really was. You know, we cleared 1,010K a week off weekly wages. Guys, that's not some small feat. That's immense. Okay. And then when you start looking at all the departures, okay, I wasn't a fan of the fees. I still think that's an area where Arsenal will perennially have to improve. That's something that we just don't do well, and we have to do a lot better. So ultimately, I think that the departures, they were great to get everybody out, but the fees were horrendous. So for me, it was really quite poor, probably a 5 out of 10. In terms of just getting everybody out, but you didn't get me the fees that I really wanted. So then moving on, we got some really good loans. I really agree, mainly in terms of our youngsters. Brooke and Patino got excellent loans, and they're doing really well, but not just them. Flo got an excellent loan. Tavares got an excellent loan. They're showing it right now. So I think loans in general is an area of the pitch that I think we had our most success this window. And then when you kind of wrote that in, I think that's probably an 8. And so the average for me on across those 3 pillars of our recruitment process so far have been around a 6.5. I am going to factor in a Saka extension as well as a William Saliba extension. I think those are legitimately just waiting time. I have no issue with those. And I even think Gabriel Martinelli is somebody that we're going to find as well is going to have a contract extension there. So for me, we did a lot of business. I don't think ultimately we did enough on the starting 11 that I wanted, but we did fill all the holes that I minimally wanted. And then I feel as though the departures weren't as great as what we could have done in terms of fees, but we got everybody out. So you have to say kudos to that. And of course, Edu finally drumming up a relationship through Marquinhos, whether he is somebody that did well or features this season, that's up for debate. But ultimately, he finally delivered on his promise of having a connection with a Brazilian club. So for me, I give the overall window a 6.5 out of 10. Not something that, I'm going to criticize the club too much for, but also not going to write home about as saying that we did phenomenal. So for me, definitely some good and bad aspects, but I'll go to Chris since I don't know if Curran's there. But Chris, window-wise, what do you make of the overall window? What's your score out of 10? And positive and negatives about it?
I think a big positive is to do everything early. Obviously, we were looking at other deals after Chelsea, which we had everybody in by, but we were looking at other deals and we didn't get anybody. But I think it was positive to have everybody ready, everybody fit for apart from Vieira, everybody was ready and fit for the start of the season. Marquinhos did well.
Third bid gone in, 25 mil.
Honestly, couldn't care less, if I'm being honest. I couldn't care any less about signing Douglas Luiz. For me, it's a 7.5 out of 10. I think one reason why people don't really look at what we have is because Arteta is reluctant to use it. Like last season, I complained a lot at the end that he didn't use certain players throughout the whole season. And then when we really needed them, they had nothing under their belt to rely on, no confidence, no nothing, because they didn't play. For like Sambi and Tavares, it was last season. Obviously, Sambi's got a chance this season because of injury. But when those players are back, will he continue to get chances? We don't know yet. Hopefully he does use those players more, like Nketiah, Smith Rowe, Vieira. Like we probably have some of the best depth in the league. Like off the bench, we're bringing off Tomiyasu, Nketiah, Smith Rowe, Sambi. Like we have very good depth. Vieira didn't even make it off the bench in certain games. Like
So,
we have
Chris,
very
can
good
I
depth.
ask you, would you just really quickly, it'll be in your evaluation, the window, do you see Eddie Nketiah as another personality type in the attack to be content with? Because I'm somebody that wanted to go into the window with 2 versatile forwards and 2 starting additions, but has the development of Eddie Nketiah, is it something to add in terms of the depth? Because you were mentioning depth, and I didn't quite hear you say Eddie, and I feel as though he's a
Say it
massive
first.
part. I feel as though he's a massive part that I don't think people are considering in terms of their overall evaluation of the squad. What do you make of that?
I think it's very good to have a player who, quite evidently in the all or nothing, is patient. Like he's willing to not play, although it may annoy him, but he's willing to work hard whilst not playing because he knows eventually he will get the chance. And when he does get the chance, because Arteta does take a lot of time to make changes, which is annoying, but he does take a lot of time to make changes. Someone like Eddie who can match the level of anyone in the squad at striker and left wing is very good to have off the bench, especially with his mentality. Like if he had the mentality of Lokonga, for example, I think it would be very different having someone like Eddie, because he probably would not have signed the deal in the summer anyways. But yeah, I think him coming in meant that, because earlier in the summer I wanted someone like Osimhen to be bought, but because Eddie played so well and Jesus has played so well, I didn't care for a striker after that Chelsea preseason game. And then, yeah, so 7.5 out of 10. I think we have depth, and if Arteta is willing to use it, people will look back on the summer and think even more highly of it than they do now, because we have the players that can play. Like Vieira still hasn't seen a game because he hasn't needed to. We have enough depth that someone as good as Vieira hasn't needed to play. And then
our leading goal scorer for the last 8 months of the last campaign
Smith Rowe hasn't started either. So yeah, I think we have a lot of depth, and if Arteta is willing to use it, which he needs to be, because we're going to have a lot of games, he needs to be willing to use depth, and sometimes use the depth to start in league games to give the main starters a rest. So yeah, I think 7.5, and people will look back on it a lot higher than they did in the moment, just like last summer.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And essentially, current mate, I'm going to ask you the same question in terms of your overall eval of the window. I think all as a panel, we've agreed that the idea that us not recruiting 15 goals or assists in the league was probably the missing piece that we all wanted, ideally, in order to complete this window. But in terms of, for you, what's your overall kind of summary of the window, pros and cons, but also give me that kind of out of 10 evaluation of it?
I mean, I think 6.56 is around something or something. Put it in the middle, 6.25, say, or 6. You went 6.5. I'm not going 6.5. 6, I'll give it. Then I'm not be saying here that it's like a 2 or a 4. We recruited some incredible players. Vieira, Marquinhos is going to be, I don't know what he will be, but he looks like a bundle of trouble. Zinchenko, leadership, Jesus, leadership. We've got Matt Turner, who will be a cut goalkeeper that we should be able to rely on. So some really good signings. But at the end of the day, you look at the likes of Bissouma going to Spurs, you look at a Wolf Zaha just sitting there, and these are players that could have really elevated our squad.
I think Zaha's not just sitting there. I think it will take a lot to get him. But I wanted to ask you two, what would it have taken to make it like a 9 or 10 out of 10 for you guys?
Well, for me, we had to do better selling. We've recruited 20 million pounds selling. Like, that's not good enough for me. Like, it's poor for me. I think I needed to recruit another starting 11 edition, not a depth edition. So if I was going to have somebody like a Wilfred Zaha, I think that would have upped it in terms of, a 9 or a 10. That was somebody that I keep banging on about was the best price to quality ratio in the window. So if you had basically improved your selling fees, or recouped more money in terms of that, in addition to getting another starting 11 addition to the squad, I would have upped it to probably an 8. I feel a 9 would be very generous. I would have had to have another signing in midfield, depth or starting, to do that. I would have had to have 2 signings to give myself a 9 out of 10. So if you got me maybe an Yves Bissouma and a Wilfred Zaha, both at 25 million pounds, and then maybe Zaha at 35 was probably the upper limit of what I was willing to do, I would have said that's a 9 out of 10 window if I got those 2 players. But yeah, that's kind of it for me. In addition to the selling fees, that it had to be better. We've only got 20 million pounds. That's not good enough.
No, a 10 is like someone, a leader, like a real a level raiser, like a ceiling raiser, like someone that out of this world. So a Declan Rice or a Rafael Leao, someone like that. That's a 10. You don't just hit 10 by raising the floor. Ceiling raises you raise to a 10, and obviously these aren't realistic signings right now. So I don't think a 10 was even possible. Like Haaland, Nashville's player, like something like that, something really completely ridiculous. So these are not 10 isn't realistic, and 9 would be that we have leaders in our squad that could take us to the next level and make sure we can challenge this year. I think we could get top 4 quite easily. I don't know if we challenge like a deep challenge for the title. I don't know if we can get into maybe March and still be around and give it a fight. I think we
So
can.
what's around? Just so I know, when we get to March, I'm going to refer back. So what's around?
Okay, so 3.6 points off top.
So within
by
3
the end of
games.
March.
Okay.
By the end of March, between 3 and 6 points, or maybe 9 points max.
I'd say 8. 8's fair. I think people have overturned 8 points in the past for March. It's difficult, but it's happened. I think 8 is probably the litmus of a title challenge by March, I'd say. Or top 4 or anything. Like whatever you're challenging, you need to be within 8 points of your limit.
So March the 1st, we have to be 8 points by.
No, end of March. End of March, I said.
But there's no, okay. End of March, we have to be 8 points behind. I'll say City, just because we're assuming they're gonna. Or 8 points behind first to be a 9 out of 10 window. Okay. But yeah, I think.
I'm going to refer the question back to you since you kind of took over hosting duties. For you, since you were probably the highest between the two of us in terms of already, what would have made it not 8 because that's only 0.5? What would have made it a 9 out of 10 window for you in terms of what we got?
I probably wouldn't want a proper.
And Zaha is out of contract next summer, by the way, for everybody saying that's a major reason why I kept saying he was the best price to quality. He was in the last year of his contract. He's still among the best left wings in the league, factually, and even right wings in the league. But yeah, sorry, go ahead, Chris.
I really wanted Zaha, but Vieira was saying that it would take something massive for them to even sell. So whatever massive is, we don't know because it's not a number, but I'm assuming it would have been like 40, 50 million, which I don't think we would have been willing to do. But someone like that, a world-class attacker, because Jesus...
Like a Victor Osimhen in addition to a Jesus?
Yeah, because Jesus is the versatile forward that can play to a great level in left wing, strike and right wing. But someone who would have been elite to world-class in any one of those positions probably would have. And then just... who else would I have realistically sold that? Maybe a big sale, like earn more money from sales, because we didn't earn any money from the sales. Like we got players out, and next season it won't be an issue, which I'm happy about. Like Mari, Pepe, Lacazette, all these guys, they left, which I'm happy about. But we could have made a lot more money from it. But that's really it. Like a big name signing and a better sales for me. That's it. To make it.
Yeah, no. I think we're basically saying kind of very similar, and we're seeing the I guess breaking news, so to speak, is like there's a third offer that went in terms of £25 million, and in terms of Douglas Luiz, I think look, that's an upper limit. I still think that's overpaying ultimately, but really quickly because I do want to answer this for Lucas in terms of just medically. Look, Rambo's good. For United, Odegaard is definitely a question mark. Like I have to inspect him, but if he's going on and they're already putting on ice, that's not a great sign. That typically, it doesn't mean anything serious in terms of long term. You'd want to look at a compression or a boot in terms of that stuff, but he didn't wear those things. It is a grade 1, but even grade 1 sprains, they're typically 7 to 10 days. So I think Odegaard will be fine for the following weekend, but for United, it's probably too short for him. It's probably something like an Emile Smith-Rowe. In terms of any kind of other injuries, I would think that Zinchenko is very likely to be fit for United, by the way. And the Zinchenko fitness is definitely because he didn't have a compression sleeve after his training, so he was just too short for the game that just passed in terms of Villa. But I think United is very close to being available, and then Thomas Partey is absolutely close as well. Like I don't think people realize, like it's been reported that he's back for Zurich. Zurich, guys, is Tuesday, is it, or Wednesday when we face Zurich? So it's definitely within a daily kind of evolution. Sorry, Thursday we face Zurich.
It's a Europa League game, so I'm assuming it's a Thursday.
Yeah. So for me, I think as Thomas Partey might be light, but he could happen. But it is a very short term. Zinni is absolutely somebody that I think is going to be involved. I think you could rule out Odegaard, and Partey is a question mark. He could be fit, but Rambo will definitely be fit. Okay, so guys, look, I think we're going to kind of go into the rest of the window. You guys in the comments, you let us know what you felt like the window was out of 10. Give your mark out of 10 and maybe why. What are some pros and cons that you
I
felt
think.
like?
Wait. I think I want to talk on this because I really disagree with this thing about this notion about Zaha that he's like an angry player who doesn't work for the team. He's very effective pressing now than he was obviously in the past. He's very willing pressing now, and he doesn't have a free role. He has a very specific role at Palace. In specific games, is to get in behind and peel off the back of the left wing. But Eze, for example, has a bigger allowance to roam the pitch and free to do whatever he wants than Zaha in the team. I think people haven't seen or don't know the difference between Roger Zaha and Vieira Zaha. Like, he's a very different player, and he's very frustrated when they defend. But enough on Zaha because it seems he's not leaving, so he's not a transfer topic. But yeah, I think people need to stop thinking about Zaha like how he was at 25 because he's very different now.
Well, you saw him in terms of his role against Liverpool. He absolutely was an off-the-ball runner. I think people need to update their views in terms of what he is. He's a very complete player, but like you said, I think it's almost a void topic because A, he's not moving, and B, it's kind of done. So that's kind of the issues on Zaha. Again, you guys in the comments, let us know what you felt like the window was going to be, and we're going to move on to kind of other areas in the window. But we'll talk like the big ones. Guys, are you happy with the Zakaria? So let's talk Chelsea a little bit because they essentially got Aubameyang. We're coming back. We were going to have an oboe with an Arsenal tattoo playing for Chelsea. And how do you guys feel about Aubameyang returning? Is it something that they need? Because I had huge debates with Chelsea fans myself. Really quickly, when you look at Chelsea, the issue that they have is they have zero creativity between the lines, and there's a big hole. Kind of what you see in terms of Allegri's Juventus at the back, you see with Chelsea in the middle of the park. They have this octagon with zero thrust in the middle of the park. And Aubameyang, they seem to just be thinking he's the same goal scorer, by the way. Everybody that you talk to that's a Chelsea pundit or a Chelsea tactico, so to speak, in quotes or unquotes, is somebody that believes that, Aubameyang is still somebody that's a reliable goal scorer. And that's not something that you can say in 2022. But even if you did say that, I think that getting that profile striker was probably the most idiotic thing they could have done. I was worried that they were going to get an Ivan Toney. I think Ivan Toney is probably the type of striker that would have solved Chelsea's issues the quickest and the best. You basically get the best out of Sterling. You get the best out of Havertz, by the way, because he's got a backboard to kind of go off of. He's got somebody that can link the play in between. They can deal with that big octagon shape in the middle of the park that they don't do. And he was somebody that would press effectively from the front and provide them a final ball centrally. That's something that they didn't have. And they keep relying on wide creation out wide. Then you kind of move on to Zakaria, who I think, Zakaria is definitely somebody that, I had an interest in when he was a free opportunity. But, from a loan to buy option, there's really no commitment from that. So I don't know if that's necessarily a poor purchase. I think it's poor in the sense that when you go from pursuing Frankie de Jong to pursuing Alvarez to pursuing Sangare, and then you end up at Zakaria, sure, it's poor. But I don't think he's a poor player. I think he's going to come in. He's actually going to do quite well. But I don't think he moves the needle for them because, again, I think the player that they needed in the middle of the park was somebody that was going to be a more effective build-up player that could control transitions together. I think Zakaria is just somebody that does the latter. He's only really good at transition control. So, Curran, I'll go to you first, mate. Look, Aubameyang's been confirmed. He's a Chelsea player. And then Zakaria got confirmed today. What do you make of Chelsea's window in general in terms of this Todd Boehly scattergun approach? And then maybe just quickly comment on those last two signings and whether or not they fixed the big holes that Chelsea needed to fix. Because, again, it's important, but people keep telling me that the depth of Chelsea and rivals are potentially greater than Arsenal. But do you think the last two signings of Zakaria and Aubameyang basically solved their biggest issues of a focal point up top and then fixing the midfield issue that they clearly had?
Look, if you look at Aubameyang, what is Aubameyang, guys? He is a great goal threat in terms of finishing. His ball strike has never been up to par. He's been okay. It's gone hot and cold at times, but he's never been he's a great outlet. He's someone that makes off the ball runs quite well. He's never been, even though we tried it. We remember the Tottenham game last year, the North London derby, where he was trying to win aerial duels and try and get involved in hold-up play and try and participate in actually getting the ball into the back of the net. And that was literally his baby stats at it. He's not someone that holds the ball up. He's a behind the line runner who does well in the box. That's who he is. He's a goal threat. What Chelsea don't have is anyone to give him the ball. Who's going to give him the ball? Is he gonna, like Mount's on the wing? They have Reece James. They haven't addressed the issue of creativity between the lines. Ironically, if they had gone for someone that we all love in James Maddison, even giving them some quality to actually get the thrust, as you mentioned, through midfield, getting them into the final third, they don't have that. They have a midfield of. I know where everyone's going to theorize and be like, oh, he's going to play Zachariah with Mount as an 8, and he's going to play Kovacic, and it's going to work okay. He's not going to play that. He's going to play J5. He's going to play Kovacic, and he's going to play Zachariah, and he's going to put Mount on the wing because he's stubborn. He's not going to do it, and it's going to be funny because their best 8 is on the wing for them, and they have the player that they bought in as a franchise player playing on the left in Raheem Sterling when he's better on the right, and they've got their best 8 playing right wing when he could be playing 8. So it's a mess. It's an utter mess.
It is a mess. And you know what? I was even saying in group chats, this is obviously something that Thomas Tuchel would never do. But, I was saying, look, in theory, if you got a Chukwuemeka and you've got Gallagher and then you've got Zachariah, that's the type of B-Tech midfield that you need for a midfield 3. Now, of course, Tuchel's never going to play it. But look, I'm a coach and I'm somebody that looks at the players that you've got. And I think, ooh, that could be very interesting. And especially for some lower level kind of Premier League games, like my mind is ticking when you start to do that. It's something that Tuchel could do. But look, I'm going to say it right now. Tuchel's the biggest impasse for Chelsea in terms of a coach and what is actually limiting their potential right now. In terms of the recruits that he was really intent on, he spent close to 300 million pounds, guys. He broke the record in terms of a total transfer fee. And I don't know if he's necessarily improved that squad. I think that there are some of them that are very good signings. I think Fofana is a good signing. I think it's overvalued, but it's a good signing. I think Sterling, I really like Sterling. It's definitely a player that I really have a lot of belief in. But again, I don't know if on his own that's enough. They still haven't addressed their biggest holes in midfield. And I wanted to fire it off to Chris. Like, what do you make in terms of Thomas Tuchel and his misgivings? He's going to play a 3 at the back. It's crazy. Ironically, he sent out his best left center back and has bought another left center back that isn't even a left center back, that is better as a wing back, but is going to play him deeper. And then in addition, when you kind of look at their window, I mean, the one good thing is they didn't get rid of Broha. So maybe there's an opportunity that they play him at striker and they get smart, but he seems to love Havertz. So I don't really know. But what do you make of kind of the Chelsea window just in general?
Well, they spent 250 million.
More than that, 270.
On Aubameyang 12 million after Barcelona going for free because we paid him to leave a year ago. So no, not even a year ago. 7 months ago, we paid Aubameyang to leave Arsenal. And Chelsea now got him for 12 million. Does he improve them? Not really, because the issue is they have runners, but no one to find them. Obviously, they've got an elite final ball in Reece James, but that's only really a final third ball. Like between midfield and attack, like in the middle third, will they be able to like use the space in behind that they will have for Sterling, who is better in behind, and now Aubameyang? No, like obviously Mount wants to make runs and he's not in a good position to thrive. But their team isn't really structured to be good. Like I was even saying to you guys earlier today, that their 2 centre backs are 2 of the least stereotypically black players there are in Thiago Silva and Koulibaly. They just don't even win duels. They don't win aerial duels. They don't win ground duels. That they haven't been good in duels at all. And if they're going to keep being abusing tools, like Koulibaly keeps getting yellow cards because he's just fouling and fouling and fouling. He can't handle the league physically. And then Silva's like 39. He's the same age as Arteta, or 1 year younger than Arteta, and he's still playing every single game. So it's like, obviously they needed a Fofana, they needed a Colwell, who's on loan now. Cucurella, 60 million, who's probably one of the best backup left backs in the league. Him, Tierney / Sinchenko, like they've got a very good left back backup, and
They want
for next
arguably
season, by the way.
well, it's fine for next season, but this is why I love Tuchel. He's their own biggest poison because they're basically going to buy a prospect that are for 90 million as well. That is arguably worse than the prospect that they have that they're going to send out on loan, and by the way, is going to demand to leave once again. So, you know, I don't know. I think as long as Thomas Tuchel's in charge, he can keep wasting the money there. And by the way, Gavardio is a very good player. Don't twist that in terms of saying that Gavardio is not a good player. He's a phenomenal player. He's not worth 90 million, but he's a phenomenal player. It's just that Levi Colwell, who I rate, is absolutely somebody that's probably arguably better than Gavardio, at least more complete in ceiling.
I think
so it doesn't make sense.
They were going to spend 90 for him to come next season when Colwell's coming back from his loan. So it seems they might want to sell him too. Hudson-Odoi left. On loan, Werner left, Lukaku left, and they needed attackers, but they lost 3. Broja is now 4th choice striker, because they play Havertz, Sterling, and Aubameyang ahead of him at striker, who I think should be their number 1 choice. But I think that their big issue is their system, and they haven't got the players to be able to translate to a 4 well enough. But their 3 is dying. They don't have enough in the final third to do well in the 3 like they did. Like even early, they weren't beating teams. Like obviously they beat Norwich 7-0, I think it was last season. But apart from that, they don't really score enough goals to create a big enough gap that them having such a poor jewels in defense will like negate it. So I think their issue is that Tuchel has, because he hates transfers, but Tuchel has not built the squad to help what he wants to continue to do, and he's not built it so he can transition to what they need to do in the 4-3-3. Obviously they got good players, like Harvey Vale got a new deal finally. Hopefully Webster doesn't get a new deal and he leaves on a free next year.
He's
and hopefully Joe leaves next year as well. Like hopefully the youngsters leave next year. But what would you rate their window out of 10? For me, I think it's like a 4 because they spent 250 million.
No, I don't.
They spent 250 million and they got 30 million back. I don't know. Has Alonso officially left?
Yeah, he has. Yeah, he's part of the deal.
40 million back. Something like that.
Do you know what the difficult thing with Chelsea is? I'm not going to give it much better. I'm going to probably give it a 5. I don't know why I laughed at 4, but I'm going to give it probably a 5 out of 10. And the reason is because they are the consequence of their own decisions. They basically let go their entire defense to replace for overpriced players that I don't know are better than their youth products. So when I go back to it, could Livramento, Tomori, Guehi have featured in part of their back line? Absolutely. But then they spent whatever they spent on Fofana, which I don't quote me, but 70 million pounds, I believe, was the final fee. Was that worth it? I don't know. Then you basically send out Colwell and Maatsen, who, by the way, Maatsen could have been a left wing back cover, but then you go and you buy Azpilicueta, and then or not buy Azpilicueta, sorry, you buy Cucurella for a left wing back backup, but also in terms of the left center back, you've now bought Kalidou Koulibaly, which is a good deal. I think that's actually one of the good price deals that they made for, I think, 30 million pounds. But again, that is not long term. That's somebody that they released Rudiger in order to kind of buy a short term solution, and that would have been okay if you were assuming Levi Colwell is going to come in. But now they're spending another 90 million on Gavardio later, so it is weird. And they still, at the end of the day, by the way, amongst all of this net spend, I think Sterling is somebody they needed, and that was probably a really good addition, but they still haven't addressed their biggest needs in the window. Why didn't they go get a focal point up top? They needed it. They lacked it. They didn't do it. And then in midfield, they absolutely needed another shuttler. How do you think
their signings will change how they set up
it won't
next season? Like, who do you think has come in? Obviously Sterling and Koulibaly and our first team, but who do you think has come in that can help change to what they need to do because everyone
But
knows
Chris,
they
that's
need to
part of the
change their
problem.
four.
A, Tuchel will never do it, but even if he would, their signings don't allow them to change. That's part of the
Exactly.
reason that it's why it's a 5 out of 10. But I do want to get Curran's opinion too on this in terms of Chelsea. Like, what do you make of their window, and then what do you make of kind of the intent? I'll flip Chris's question to you in terms of, do you think now, even with these moves, are they versatile enough to change? Say Thomas Tuchel's philosophy doesn't work. Say he's not, the chosen one. And say it in fact does paper over cracks. Have they spent money in a way that you can recover or maybe transition to a new style of play?
I mean, they don't really have a midfield, do they? They have they have
Mhm.
Jorginho, they have Kovacic, they have Gallagher, Mount, who's a winger now apparently. They just have a lot of centre backs.
Who's injury prone and
Kante, Gallagher, Loftus-Cheek. I mean, I don't understand the only thing that saves them here is that what's his face? Who's the guy they signed today? Zachariah is a loan. Because that means that they can, if they don't activate that, they can actually go back and maybe go for Rice. It's the only saving grace. I don't really know where they go from here. They have a load of issues in terms of their build-up structure. They have issues in transition with
before the window.
Yeah, it's still the case though. They have issues in transition as well. Like Jorginho just gets walked past.
Yeah, no, it's really poor in transition. But you know what? I think I want to give you something because Curran's too sad for me right now. This is always a topic that makes him light up, and no matter what you're gonna do, you're gonna get a response from Curran, and that is Manchester
Arthur Melo
United.
got announced, by the way. I just want to say.
Yeah. Okay. So Manchester United. Let's talk to them really, really quick in terms of Eric Ten Hag. They spent 3 months trying to go for Frankie De Jong, and they were left with nothing. When you look at it, they overspent for Tyrion Lannister. They're playing him out of position. They got Eriksson. They got Malaysia. Tyrion Lannister. And they got free transfer in terms of Eriksson. They got Casemiro again, overspent. I think it was was the final fee £70 million, by the way, or am I talking? It was £70 million for a DM that is limited and build up in terms of what one of their biggest holes was. And then they also got Malaysia, who is actually a prospect that I do rate quite well. It's probably their best deal of the summer.
For 14.
So what do you make of United's transfer window? Is it enough? Because they're done as well. They still have not recruited a right back. They haven't recruited a right. Well, Anthony, sorry. Oh my God. I forgot one of the biggest ones there for almost 94 million euros. Do you believe that Anthony and this spend, because people haven't realized, guys, do you know that United have spent, despite all of the Glazer out campaigns, they themselves have spent close to, what's the final total?
I think it's 215 million.
215 million
before the add-ons.
Yeah, before the ad. Has anybody realized that they've spent close to 250 million pounds amongst all that they got? Okay, what do you make United, Current? Because that's somebody that you love to talk about.
It's just funny. I feel like they've. I mean, didn't that Rich Nardon guy? Didn't he say that the money is here for this summer, but next summer they might be short? And then they went and got 160 million on 2 players that don't really make a massive difference in Casemiro and Antony. Is Antony a top 3 winger in this league? No. Is Casemiro a long-term solution for their defensive midfield? Exactly. Is Casemiro a top 5 DM past this year? Maybe this year he can be amazing, and he's shown that this year he's not adjusting as well as people think he is. He's played he barely played today. He didn't play much against who did they just beat? I can't even remember. Was it Southampton? I think they beat. I can't remember who.
They beat just Leicester today, and then Southampton last week.
And then that's the thing. So he's come off the bench a couple of times and he's done okay. Cool. But these are not long-term solutions, and this should be his. If this is Ten Hag's project, it should be the starting of the project. Should be now. You should be investing in talent that can take you for the next 5 to 7 years. That can be the pillars and the benchmarks, like a Sadio Mane for Klopp was. You need the benchmarks of your project now, and he's not got them. He's got players that are physically not very good. In terms of Anthony, there's a clip that's going around. Forget the little 360 spin. There's a clip that's going around, literally, of him doing his little Neymar take control, and then just standing there. He doesn't attack space. He just stands there. I mean, how in this league, if you don't attack space, if you look at Bukayo, you look at any right wing in this league, any left wing in this league, you attack the space. It's in transition. They're posting this thing, Lissandro to Anthony, the connection. It's like, well, bro, the guy does bad. Like, why is this a highlight for you? This is not a highlight. If he does a nice little trick, cool. Twitter likes it. It's not going to do anything.
Well, so they have made 6 signings. Ericsson, Dubravka for free. Anthony 90
Dubravka
million.
actually, by the way, is a good signing for me.
Signing, yeah. Casemiro,
he's a good signing.
60 to 70 million. I think I'll just say 65. Malacia 15, and who's the other one? Anyway, so I couldn't get Martinez for 55. So they've spent that 215 million. Martinez has been interesting. I think obviously his aerial stuff is overblown, but teams are going to attack them aerially more simply because he's not there. And Anthony, I don't think will be good for them. He will not fulfill his investment, especially like now that they've been playing Rashford up top, who isn't able to bring in the attackers, and then I think he'll start over Elanga consistently now. I think
Do you actually? I don't know if I agree with that, by the way.
I think simply because of the investment, he'll have to.
He'll start that way. I don't think he adapts well to the Premier League.
I didn't say that. I didn't say that.
No, but I don't think as a result, I think that they're going to be forced to have Elanga start because I don't think that he adapts well at all to the league. When you've got a player that can't create separation physically, you have to be absolutely elite technically or be a creative passive profile, i.e. Rafinha. You have to have that level of final ball. He doesn't have that. And he doesn't have the ball striking, by the way, that you're going to predict to develop that. So he is a player. Look, I have talked about Anthony ever since I joined Twitter, by the way. I'm very well versed in terms of what he is as a player. I've loved him since his time in Brazil. And I said, look, there's potential here. But to pay 94 million euros for a player that is not complete, that you'll need to wait 3 to 4 years to even become a player that is serviceable, I think is lunacy, especially when you start looking at the level of their squad. Sure, you got a right winger, but you didn't get a right winger that was going to fix your holes. And I'm just really surprised at that. And I actually think Elanga will keep his spot. They will give him a chance because he's there for 2 or 3 months, mate. Like, I don't think that Anthony is somebody that's going to actually be a fixture in the team. I think Elanga will get his spot back after relinquishing.
I think the money will force him in. I do think, but the difference between I think what Chelsea and United have done with their signings is that United have done some things where you could see a difference into what we saw last season, simply because they could fill the midfield of Fred, Casemiro, and Ericsson instead of Bruno, Fred, and McTominay, which I think is a much better midfield. Like, I think they've definitely improved on their midfield, and they've got a better dual monster that they wanted at left back, someone who they can rely on 1v1 in Malacia. To a certain extent, like he makes a lot of fouls. Obviously, he's averaging 2 tackles a game, so he makes tackles, but he's making a lot of fouls as well. He's got 3 yellow cards in 4 games, I think, this season. So I do think Malacia is good. He's better than Telles, who they've sold or loaned out. And then Dalot has played every single game at right back. So it seems that Wan-Bissaka and Ronaldo are clearly players that are not necessarily wanted in the team. These guys are not going to play a lot. Obviously, Ronaldo's coming off the bench, and Rashford's not been good at striker. I think their clear plan was to have Rashford, Sancho, and Martial, and they looked good in pre-season. And when they were together, it looked good. But now that Rashford's playing in this striker role and he doesn't have a good first touch anymore, he only can't receive and turn anymore, that it's not going to work for him at striker. So if Ronaldo doesn't find his way back to the starting lineup, I think Rashford being there will kind of be hurtful. But I do think they've improved their team. The money they've used to do it, I think, is way too much, but they've improved their team. Like, Ericsson's a good free. Dubravka's a very good signing.
And Malacia. Those are 3 players. Those are three transfers that I say, well done. props
And I
to
think
you.
I think
You did it well.
Martinez isn't.
It's not
that
a good
good.
signing, Chris,
I'm
especially
not
with
gonna.
how
You
they're
know.
going to play.
Let me finish what I was gonna say. I was
No.
going to say that Martinez is a player that he won't have the mentality issues of Maguire, because Maguire is better than Martinez, but Maguire was going to every single game and being booed by his own fans, and Martinez won't get that. So they have someone that they'll put their thrive in, and they'll look past his issues, which I like for opposite fans. That United fans will look past his issues and look past his negatives simply because everyone thinks he's going to do poorly. But they've got players they need to remove, and they could have spent the money a lot better. What do you rate their window out of 10? Because for me, it's a 6 out of 10 because they improved the midfield, but the money they spent is way too much.
I don't know. I feel as though that probably a 5.5 out of 10. Only because for me they did address their needs better than say a Chelsea did, but I don't
Much
think
better.
they did it well. So
Yeah,
like
the
I'm
money
gonna
was too
I'm
much.
gonna marginally increase it. And you know that's kind of my take for United. And so I'm gonna fire it off to Curran, who's just smiling away. What do you make of Manchester United's window?
Not good. It's not good. Like I don't know why we're giving it 5s. It's a 4 out of 10 at best.
I
It's
disagree.
not. It's.
I really.
I'll tell you. I'll tell you what. Let me tell you what. They have spent over £200 million on a window that will not get them top 4. It's
But
that simple.
they've now got a top 10 midfield where they didn't have that before at all.
No, but the thing is,
And they've got a reliable
if-
goalkeeper and reliable left back.
no, but they're not going to be. If they're not going to be, they need to actually look at the future. They can't just say, okay, we're going to do. We're going to spend £200 million on a window that doesn't advance us to the next level of our project. That's the issue,
I
and
think
it doesn't do that.
I think the
Malacia is
minimum,
23
in order
now.
to get like a 5, look, for me, in order to get a 5 out of 10, the absolute minimum that you have to do is improve your team. No matter how large or how small, you have to improve your team. And so that's why I think you at least get a minimum. And the reason that I think Chelsea didn't is because I don't think they've improved, and they did it at the expense of players that they already have. They actually hurt themselves. That's kind of the big reason why I
No,
think
but
that
the
Chelsea.
issue is I don't know if they can recruit to that same level of spending next year. They've already reported that they're saying
United or Chelsea?
They can.
United,
Both
not
of them
Chelsea.
can. They
Yeah, but
bought
but
Sancho.
there's been reports that next summer is not going to be as easy because
They get
of
United will get a 70
no Champions
million.
League.
They'll get a 70 million signing every single season. I think
Mm.
guaranteed. They'll get a 70
I
plus
don't
million
think so,
every single signing.
and that's
And
the
you
reason
got
why I gave it a 4, because if it
what we've
means
seen
that
Maguire, Sancho, and Anthony now in 3 or 4 years. So
Yeah.
they're going to get 70 plus million sign every year. I think their midfield is good when they've got Casemiro, Eriksen. If they filled it, Casemiro, Eriksen, Fred is a very good midfield. Like if you use it as a pivot and a 10, I think it's a good midfield. And then
should we address this?
they've now got a very a reliable. He's not a monster by any means of the word, but someone who's reliable in Jules at left back and a better keeper than De Gea in Dubravka. I think it's a
But will he
5,
start
6 out
him?
of 10.
Will he start Dubravka though? I don't know if he starts Dubravka.
No, he
All
won't.
the
He
reports.
won't start.
No, I'm
Dubravka,
saying
but-
I'm talking about the prospect of what they could have, because that's essentially what it is with the signings. Because
I
we
don't
could
know.
see
I
Jesus.
just think
Jesus could be a great backup right wing, but we might not see it because the
no,
manager
we
won't
won't. I
do
don't
it.
think we will. But the thing is, I think what we're seeing here is you're starting a project that is clearly a project to get a squad back to the top, and you're not allowing the manager to. You will
You don't
not
think
allow.
they're allowing?
No,
These
no,
are
no.
the
Allow. I was
signings.
literally. I was about to say allow is the wrong word. They're not giving the manager the prospects that they're
You
going
don't
in
think
for
these are
names
his
again.
signings? They're all from his old team and league.
No. You're misunderstanding. I'm not saying allowing. Allowing is the wrong word. I'm saying they're not giving him signings that can prove them long term.
But
Casemiro doesn't give them long term. That's not a
if he
long
wants
term
them,
signing.
apart from Casemiro, everyone's under 20. Apart from Casemiro and Eriksen, everyone's under the prime age for their position. So, and they signed 6 players. So,
No,
and
but
a lot
what
of them are
positions
from
are these players in though?
a
These
lot of them are
players.
from the Dutch league. So seem to
Look, part
want
of
them.
the issue is, guys, like I don't agree with Eric Ten Hag's talent ID in general. Like the identification of these players and their valuation for who they bought is something that they're going to struggle with. In terms of them improving their team, they absolutely improve. I think anybody that says that they didn't improve, I think is poor. I think they improved. Their level of improvement, I think it's marginal. And I think that's probably one of the bigger points that Kern, I think that you're trying to make in terms of how much is that improvement marginal. And I think I would agree with you. It's really quite slight for me. I don't think that the effect of who they bought is somebody that's going to shoot them up the table in terms of what their projections are. And I think it's
Do you
just
think they
because
could get sixth now? Because
I
they
don't
didn't before.
know, but I think before they maybe were seventh or eighth in potential, and now maybe they're up one or two positions in the table. Maybe they're sixth or seventh. Like for me, they haven't done enough to shoot themselves up the table, and that's why it's marginal. Have they improved? Sure, but I don't think that they've done enough in terms of addressing their major needs. Like what the needs that they chose, Chris, by the way, aren't needs that solve those issues. So in terms of when you're
I
talking
don't.
about Maguire and in terms of the Martinez debates, I don't think that money was good spent, especially for how they're going to play him. Anthony, another area where they needed a right wing,
I
they're not
agree.
going to play them to a degree about doing it. So when you look at some of the areas of the pitch that they will improve, i.e., Casemiro, what does he do to their midfield? He improves them, but do they have somebody that can help build up? No, they don't. So then they're going to struggle because that's something that they can't really do to good
I don't
effect.
disagree with anything you're saying. The only thing I disagree with is how much they could potentially improve.
So how many league
Um,
positions do you believe that they've changed? So like before the window, where did you place them? And then after the window, if you're debating kind of the improvement, like is it 2 or 3 league positions
I
that
think
of a jump
I
or
think they will compete and do what they did versus Southampton and Leicester a lot more frequently than I thought they would have without any signings or
mm,
without certain signings. Like I think I'm talking about what you could potentially see, not what we may or may not. Like what's more likely, what we could potentially see. Like we could see a Sancho, Martial instead of Rashford. I really don't want to see Rashford at striker. Um, but there's things they could do that are much better than what we saw last season. I think Maguire is better than, it's probably the best centre back they have, but his relationship with the fans won't allow him to thrive. Like he could have a 10 out of 10 game, but no one will perceive it as a 10 out of 10 games because they all hate him. So I think a guy like Maguire is done at the club, so they should get rid of him and find someone maybe not similar but as good. But I don't think
They
like
just made him captain though. He said that's his
he's
captain.
not playing.
I'm just going to address this really quickly in terms of being short of center midfielders. Look, this is absolutely a short-term issue,
It's
by
a
the way,
lie.
because Thomas Partey is going to be back within the week, and in terms of our most ready U23 prospect, Miguel Aziz was not going to be touching the Premier League, and he wasn't going to be touching major squads for Europa League. Look, he started the season well, but he was somebody that absolutely needed a loan. He wasn't going to figure, and Charlie Patino was not somebody that was ready for the Premier League. So, in terms of our most ready U23 prospects factoring into this is just not true. In terms of Pepe, look, I think we needed a winger, and if you look at the beginning part of the stream, we were all very critical of the fact that we didn't get another attacker in. But I mean, in terms of Pepe, I really push back on the idea that Pepe as an option was somebody that even factored in terms of giving Saka proper rest. That was not the case. In fact, the big reason that we're even thinking about recruiting somebody is because Pepe, when available, wasn't consistent enough to provide Saka any rest. So I don't really buy that it's an issue of quality as opposed to quantity. We have roles, we have that, but we don't have the quality in order to give them rest. Look, the one thing that I want to end on before we go to kind of viewer comments and kind of questions is what was your most interesting transfer of the window that you're really excited about? Not in terms of team, but I want you to pick one transfer that
Why
you
don't
guys
we do
believe.
deadline day and window?
Sure, we can do deadline day. So, what was your favorite deadline day deal and window deal in general? So, I'll go to Chris first. What was your favorite deadline day deal? We'll do that first. Chris, you.
Um, the Bravka, weirdly,
Hmm.
because I don't really like Emmanuel Kanji. I don't really like, and Isak is not the deadline day. He's the whole thing. But I think the Bravka because uh, it gives them someone who's better than they are on the ball, and he doesn't only do well when shots are pelted at him because he's played in certain games for Newcastle where he's not been facing so many shots and still played well. So yeah, I think the Bravka is probably my most interesting deadline day deal. And then the whole thing. I think Isak's even though he's £70 million, which is a lot of money, I think it was a very good signing. Simply because first it says no, he doesn't look like me. He said a big statement about it. Made a big statement for them as a club to get someone that essentially everybody wanted. But I think who's the best signing of the window? I don't know the best signing of the window, honestly. I like Morgan
Who's
Gibbs White.
somebody that I want to tweak it instead of like the best value because it's tough on the spot. Who is somebody that intrigues you the most? Who is somebody that goes, oh, that could work or that could go bad? Like, what is somebody that you looked at and felt that's an interesting move?
Oh, that could go bad is Koulibaly. I always thought,
Yeah.
that this is not the smartest signing, and all that could go good is Morgan Gibbs White to Forest. Even though they made so many signings, I think he really fits in the combination play and transition play, and he's light skinned, and they've got a lot of light skinned ballers, a lot of them. So Morgan Gibbs White, what was it, 40 million?
45, something like that. Yeah.
That was a lot of money. And then Mateus Nunes as well. Even though I really don't want him to play right in the mid.
He shouldn't be playing right centre mid.
He should be playing left in the mid, but
he should
they
be
love
playing
Moutinho there a lot. So them two, because I don't really want to say anybody at a top club. Really.
Well, interesting. When we talk about kind of Everton, I was even talking offline. I think Everton is probably a window just in general that have basically moved the most in the league. They've got some really good pieces. Onana is an interesting one from the France league. Curran, you had made a thread on him earlier on. He's somebody that's pretty good. Idrissa Gueye is pretty good. I don't know if they ended up getting a striker that they really needed, though. I was really a fan of the Che Adams move that they wanted, but it's probably really ambitious. But I felt that was a good move if they could have done it. But they managed to keep Gordon. So I think Everton are kind of looking at it.
2 in a row.
He scored 2 in a row. Exactly. That's how it is. But I'm going to say, look, I don't really have an opinion on deadline day because I don't even think that there was very many moves in general today. Like, I don't think that there was much that I can really say deadline day. Probably Dubravka. I'll probably go with you, mate. But like Akanji happened. Oba happened, who I'm not a fan of. Zakaria happened. I don't.
Melo.
Arthur Melo, who again is I don't think somebody that I'm a big fan of. So I think in general Dubravka is probably the best bet. But I will say, look, my boy Goncalo Guedes, I've been talking about him for so long. He's somebody that is my biggest what if player. It could either go really poor, it could go really good. He's somebody that's looked good immediately on his introduction. I knew he would, but he's somebody that I'm really going to be looking forward to in terms of what he can do in the league. And then I'm just going to shout out West Ham's window. I think them getting Paqueta makes it a very interesting team when you start to look at their midfield. So they could field a Pablo Fornells, Paqueta, and Declan Rice midfield 3 with Scamacca, Antonio, and Jared Bowen. That's an extremely balanced team, and I think that.
By the way, sorry to cut you off, but Brendan spoke out against the board, saying that he has had no help in the transfer window to change what the results have been so far. So I think he might be sacked the same way. And what Scott Parker was about talking about not having good enough transfers. But actually, I'll let Karen go on the same question that you asked. He doesn't.
So, in terms of the most interesting transfer of the summer.
Sorry, 1 second, Curran. Vote yes or no with thumbs up or thumbs down if Chris looks like
we can do a poll. We can do a poll.
We'll do a poll. You guys let us know if Chris does look
no,
like
he doesn't. He just doesn't.
Sorry, go ahead, Curran.
The most interesting signing or the most intriguing is Haaland. Like it's quite. I want to see how many records he breaks. I want to see how well he does. I want to see. He looks like he's going to break this.
But he was going to do that regardless of where.
No, but if you ask me what the most interesting is, I want to see this guy break people. I want to see him do mad things and break this league. So,
can you give me a hipster choice?
Because Haaland was going to be the most interesting regardless because he's Haaland. Like if Mbappe moved, you would have said, interested to see how this changes.
Hipster. Maybe Ghana to Everton. It seems like could be the most hipster thing I can think of.
You look more like Ruben Diaz than I do Emmanuel Akanji.
So basically what we're saying, what you've got up top at BoP is the starting centre-back partnership for Manchester City in their next Europa League game.
Akanji reeks. He's not good.
Champions League.
Or
They don't play
Champions.
Europa.
No, I don't think we're good enough for that. Actually, sorry, the cup game. So probably a Carabao Cup. The two up top here is probably what you're going to see. Sorry, go ahead, Curran.
No, but if we're talking the hipster one, probably Ghana is the first one that came to my mind. I think he's just been announced on deadline days to Everton, and they've got a lot of midfield signings. I mean,
so we spoke about this 4 days ago. I know I'm not the host, but we spoke about this 4 days ago. Who would have been like, the biggest change they could have made in the last 4 days? Stop bringing up these comments.
I think it's got to be Everton just in general. But
no, but who didn't? Who missed out the most? Because obviously Spurs didn't make the attacking
go
signing.
down in terms of their targets.
Yeah, Spurs didn't make the attacking signing that we needed them to make, or like an attacker or 10 creative player that we thought they needed to make. And then City obviously got a left back, but I didn't think they really needed that. And then Liverpool signed a centre mid. To be fair to them, even though we thought they wouldn't get one at all, I don't think he's the best quality they could have got, but at least they got one. And we didn't make a signing. It looks like we haven't. Obviously, there's 34 minutes left, but we haven't made one. So
no, you know what? Ironically, Aston Villa may have probably had something that I was really surprised with. I think they had a poor window, and I'm
apart
really
from
worried.
Leicester, obviously, because they haven't made anyone.
Yeah, no, like I think actually Aston Villa, the fact that they didn't get anybody of significance is a team is going to be battling for relegation. You know, I think look Leicester as well, but I already had them quite low. Like in terms of my predictions, and the fact that they really didn't have anybody, and with Brendan, the one thing I will say is if you sack Brendan early, I actually think that Leicester squad go up pretty well, just in terms of who they have. It's been underutilized, undercoached, and undermanned. So for me, I think Aston Villa is probably the most interesting window in terms of probably those who could go down the lowest. Nottingham Forest, guys, look, I'm going to be a casual in this take. I don't understand how you can make is it 19? What's the total number of signings at this point?
I'll check right now, but I think it was 18 before.
It was, but they made another couple, didn't they, today? Like, I think Nottingham Forest, again, they're a team, by the way, that I think they
spent 210 million.
Mate, it's gone under the radar. Like Nottingham Forest are one of the biggest spenders in the window, not just in transactions, but in total transfer spend. And I think they've recruited some really interesting players. There's some of them that I like more than others, but I just think when you do that level of turnover, there's no way that they click to the degree that they do. But maybe they've recruited just enough quality that doesn't matter. And regardless, that quality will take them over the line just barely. But I think that's a team that you want to really worry about. And I do want to shout out my second team. Chris's is Palace, mine is Brentford. I think they did really smart business. Just
they signed Willy Bolly.
They did sign Willy Bolly.
They did. Yeah, they've done incredible. I do want to shout out Brentford though. There's definitely a club that I really do well. And I like their window in terms of
he's been very good.
Who?
Can I just say something about Brentford quickly? It's hilarious. It's hilarious that Todd Bowley went, okay, the backup bid to Aubameyang is Tony. That's the backup. That's the backup to what we want to do is
Forest. Aurier, that's 20.
Yeah, so like literally, I just find it hilarious.
That is incredible, man. They did not come to play. They won the playoffs and then like we got the most money in England, so we're gonna spend it. They spent a lot of money. They got a lot of good players. They got Lingard, Morgan Gibbs White,
Emmanuel Dennis.
They got a lot of good players that obviously will change them. They've got a lot of which the main thing I said when I predicted that they wouldn't be near the relegation fight is that they got a lot of transition threats, and even if you're one of the poorest teams in the league, if you have that many transition threats, you're going to score goals. And obviously, like versus Tottenham, they were good. Apart from the final action, they were good. So I think they're a good team before all the signings, but they needed a lot of change with what's his name, Spence now being a fourth choice right back at Spurs because Conte didn't want him. So they've made a lot of signings, and it's crazy. I think it's very different to anything we've ever seen because everyone else who comes up signs players, but not names that a lot of other teams wanted. So I think they'll do well. a lot better
Yeah,
than
no,
people.
absolutely. And look, I want to give a chance for everybody. Thank you guys so much for sticking with us. So we'll do probably another 10 to 15 minutes of viewer questions. So you guys send in your questions that you want us to answer.
When I know they,
And we'll try to fire these off and kind of quick fire stuff. And we'll get everyone's
It's
opinion.
too, it's so many of them. Like
when I know
it's,
he's very good on FIFA, by the way. For any FIFA scouts out
I
there.
do not care. I do not care. Honestly, with like they've got Freuler as well, didn't they? They got
Yeah.
like it's a lot. It's a lot of players.
Nico Williams from Liverpool
Nico
for 18 million.
Yeah.
Omar Richards from Bayern.
Okay, let's do this
You
really
take
quickly
it.
because I love Brentford. So for me, thoughts on Brentford? I think they're going to do a very strong finish. I think they're going to be mid-table club. I think what they've done in terms of their transfer window has been excellent. I was a really big fan of the Hull winger that they signed. I was really big.
Say his name. Say his name.
Say
it. Potter. So
yeah,
he's really good. I'm a really big fan of Damsgaard, and of course Aaron Hickey I thought was a really smart pickup as well. I think that they've done a really good job in terms of filling in their holes. But also I think when you have Josh Da Silva is there, I think, and you add Ivan Toney, I think they start to really look like a very good team. And look, I'm a big fan of Thomas Frank. I said it even in my predictions. They're a team that I feel is going to be up there in terms of one of the best managers in the league. I really rate Thomas
he
Frank.
was last season, to be fair to him. He was top 4.
He was excellent last
Manager of the year.
season, and I just think when you supplement the squad with Damsgaard, you supplement it with Aaron Hickey, you supplement with Potter, you supplement it. They went after Mudryk as well. They're a team that does things right. So for me, yeah, they're my B team, and I'm a really big fan of it.
Yeah, I think they're a very good team. They did go make some good signings. Obviously, they got a backup goalkeeper, Strakosha, Ben Mee, who's played every game this season for them since he's been there. Rico Henry's been very good, even though he's already been there. He's been very good, and Hickey's been very good at right wing back. I think the players they've signed have made a big change for them. Like Lewis Potter is good to allow them to have a free up front to keep the spaces closer to Tony, so he doesn't have to run as much. But I don't like Mbuemo touchline right wing. He hasn't been good at it so far this season. But I do think Brentford will do better than they did last season because they got big injuries that when they happened, they couldn't replace. Like when Raya got injured, they were done for. And hopefully for them, he doesn't get injured. But if he does, they have Strakosha now, who's a higher level than what they had last season.
And I'm going to do these kind of in terms of a quick fire because we're going to be getting a lot more questions. So, Chris, are you going to be going as a Kanji for Halloween? Yes or no?
I don't look like him, so no.
No.
Oh, wait. I saw you. You were laughing at that, innit, Karen? Silently.
Really quickly, guys. Final thoughts on Luis. Current. We'll go around in a circle really quickly. What do you make of the Luis stuff?
Well, he's not an Arsenal player, so he's automatically shit. So no, I'm kidding. Look, it didn't happen. It is what it is. Like we have options. We have Thomas Partey coming back in a week. So there was.
See,
it's not that big a deal. Was it not that? Was it not silent? I thought I had my.
No,
I
could
mic
see you and hear you.
Could you hear me?
Yes.
I thought I turned my mic off, but never mind.
Chris, what? So sorry, Curtin. Finish up your thoughts on Luis in terms of yay or nay.
Good on the ball at times. Difficult to judge him in transition to see what he could do. Would prefer him as an 8 to a 6. So he's not exactly what we need. So not that huge a loss, but it would have been nice to get the body in.
Yeah, I think he was just fundamentally somebody that was better than Mohamed El-Neni in possession, but worse off of it. I think he could have been a finisher in terms of a midfielder that we brought onto possession through control. But again, ultimately, I don't think he was a valuation that I was very comfortable with, and it wasn't somebody that I would have gone with for that position. I still think that Yves Bissouma, in terms of 25 million, if you're going to recruit a 6'8", was the better deal. So in terms of frustrated that we didn't bring somebody in, I didn't know that midfield was somebody that I was looking for that transition. I would have preferred more of a winger.
It was more just the injuries, I think, Mikel.
Yeah.
Villa did sign Dendoncker, by the way.
Yeah.
Which is why people thought he was 100% leaving.
Yeah, it's probably true. It's
Can I?
been well reported in terms of and also in terms of his injury, in terms of his quad. It's a grade 1 injury, and those are typically 7 to 10 days. So not only has it been well reported that he's going to be back within the week of Zurich, but also it's a grade 1 injury, which is a 7 to 10 day timeline.
Can we?
Chris,
Can we just get through a couple more questions?
I want to ask you really quick fire. Who's going to be the flop of the season? That's actually a good one. We'll go around all in a circle quickly.
Well, Koulibaly was the one. Koulibaly was the one
justifying it. Just quick one in quick sentence.
Koulibaly from before he signed was who I was going to say, but Anthony going through for 90 mil is probably him. But I'll stick with Koulibaly, but Anthony's not going to be good.
Anthony's going to be mine, just because it's too much money in terms of the amount of money that you're going to do and what his play style is going to be for the league. He's just not going to do that for 94 million. And before it was Martinez before that, but Anthony is even bigger overpaying. And I think despite Koulibaly,
it's because of where people considered him before coming to the Premier, second best centre back, undisputed in the world.
Who, Koulibaly? I just think it's low enough at 30 million pounds that even if he fails, it's not horrible.
I think it will be just because of his name.
Yeah, maybe. But for me, I think Anthony comes with even more. Like at 94 million pounds, you're one of the best players in the league, period. Not now in 18 months, 2, 3, 4 years. Like that's what that money's spent. So I think for me, Anthony's going to be the biggest flop of the season. Curran, how about you?
I'm going to go with Casemiro. I think the amount of money he is demanded for his fees and his wages. I think the ability. What?
So, Batshuayi's going to Forest as well.
Yeah, that was been reported ages ago.
I didn't see it.
Yeah, but like the ability for him he's going to have a lot of onus on him to build up, and he's not a build-up player. So I think just logically, he's not going to be as good as people think he is. He'll be great winning duels. He will improve the quality of the midfield, but the role he's going to be asked to do is not one that he's very good at. So,
35 million pound,
35 or 40 million pound out of max.
Excellent. Okay, and so guys, do you guys have any last minute questions yourselves?
Those questions about Southampton. What do you make of them? Because obviously they just signed another City youngster, Samuel Edozie. They've got a lot of youngsters. I think they went a bit too young, but it'll be a good ground for players. The same way they were a couple 8 years ago with Poch, where they had these 20 to 24-year-olds that were budding, that could go on to bigger things or do well themselves. I think they're too young to do much this season, and we've seen that. Che Adams obviously has been good, but he's not enough in the final third to put them through every single game. So I do think they'll be in a relegation battle just because they're way too young.
I've said it before in the other predictions. Their recruitment model was far too young. They didn't replace the goals that Broja left, but also his presence in terms of an attack. They didn't sign an experienced attacker. So I think Southampton, I don't really think I take away my prediction in terms of Southampton potentially going down. But guys, look, we're going to be doing a predictions now that we've known the final squads of everybody. We'll revisit our predictions. We will update them, and we will let you guys know in terms of all those fun awards, in terms of what's going to happen next for you guys. I need you guys to like, comment, subscribe. You hit that bell for notifications so you know, in fact, when we do upload. You can find me at GeorgeV_AFC. You can find Curran at CurranBoP, and of course, you can find Chris at CK Football or at CKFTBL. You can find us Ball Over Passion on YouTube, but also on Twitter at BOP Footy. In terms of schedule, guys, it's going to come thick and fast. So tomorrow we're going to do a review of Villa, and then on Saturday we'll do a preview on United. And again, anybody that's new to Ball Over Passion knows that United previews, George comes out and it's fun. It's United and it's Spurs. Those are the ones that are really fun for you guys to come up. So we're definitely going to have a look at that. And then the following week, guys, we have so many games. So just make sure that you're sticking with us. We appreciate all of the support. Thank you guys so much for sticking with us so long. I hope that you guys felt a little bit better after talking out in terms of what we ended with. And again, if you guys have any improvements that we can do, please make sure that you guys comment down below in terms of what we can do to improve. But thank you so much, everybody. And we'll hopefully catch you guys tomorrow in terms of the Aston Villa review. So thank you so much. And we'll catch you guys on the next one. Bye, everybody.